What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review, and this time we're taking a look at Terror Train, directed by Robert Pozzuolo. If I said his name wrong, I am sorry. The whole story of Terror Train is as follows. A group of pre-med medical students are pretty much hosting a costume party while on a train, and they get picked off one by one. That is the story of Terror Train. Let's waste no time. Let's get into it. Overall, I thought Terror Train was a very good slasher movie. Pretty much what Prom Night got wrong, Terror Train got right. Terror Train does not stall for time. It doesn't wait for the last half hour to actually start to do something. Just right from the word go, this movie sets its atmosphere. This movie sets its tone. That first kill pretty much sets off the chain of events, and then throughout the entire movie, all these kids start to get picked off one by one. We find out the reason why they're all getting picked off one by one, as it correlates back to an event that took place 3 years prior to the events of the movie. And I thought all that stuff was handled very, very well for the most part. So yeah, well, before I get rid of that, let's just, talk about the bare bones first. I think the overall cast of Terror Trains is actually pretty strong. You got Jamie Lee Curtis as the main character of Alana. I thought Jamie Lee Curtis was very decent in this movie. I mean, yeah, she does have certain moments where her acting can come across as flat in some areas, and her delivery can be a little bit questionable. I mean, I understand this movie only came out 2 years after Halloween. Jamie Lee Curtis was still trying to find her voice as an actress. But again, like in Prom Night, you can see that the raw potential there. And listen, not every director she worked with was the John Carpenter, where she was played to her strengths. But for this movie, I thought she was good. She came across as likable. She's actually one of the friends who was very hesitant to go along with this prank gone wrong, but she went along with it anyway. But you can tell that she also feels regret about doing so, and I like it. I like Jamie Lee Curtis as Alana. She came across as very, very likable. This movie also has Hart Bochner. Bochner, if I said his name wrong, I'm sorry. He plays a character called Doc. It's always fun to see Hart Bochner. Everyone, you might remember him as Ellis from the first Die Hard movie. Hart Bochner he's very good at playing a sleazy, just dickish type of character. And the character of Doc is no different. Hart Bochner, I liked him in this movie. He was a lot of fun. He's got some funny moments here and there. And he actually has a pretty cool scene where he locks himself in a sleeping cart, trying to block the killer from getting inside, from getting in. Of course, all the while, the killer was in there. The killer was in there the entire time, and he gets decapitated. It's actually a really cool scene. Very well done. Very suspenseful. Not gonna lie. Ben Johnson. He makes an appearance in this movie as the conductor named Karin. I like Ben Johnson in this movie. I thought Ben Johnson was great. He has a lot of scenes where he just comes across as like the authoritarian figure, but also gentle, but also a lighthearted in a way. He's actually the first character to start realizing that these kids are getting knocked off one by one, and he wants to do the reasonable thing by not trying to cause a panic and trying to keep it as self-contained as humanly possible. Of course, when the shit really starts to hit the fan, he's able to keep everyone relatively in check, with his commanding presence. There's this one scene where one of the kids tries to like be a dick, and Ben Johnson puts him right in his place. And I'm like, that's awesome. He put the kid in his place without raising his voice and without, saying, and without having pulling the "I'm the boss" card. He literally says, "Okay, take this. All your friends are dead. Just remember that." And the kid just looked at him and just like, fuck. I love it. Ben Johnson, he got across so much with doing so little. It's good. Very talented veteran character actor. And you also have and the rest of the supporting cast is decent as well. They all fill out their roles and what they're meant to do. So I got no complaints with that. This movie also has an appearance from David Copperfield, the magician David Copperfield, who plays this magician that's also aboard the Terror Train and also acts as one of the red herrings for the movie, especially when it's revealed especially when Alana starts to put two and two together and pretty much says that the character of Kenny, who got played a prank on, was the one is the one who's actually doing all the killings, and of course, it's revealed to be Kenny. But the way they actually did that reveal was actually pretty clever, and I'm actually going to get to that in a second. Just want to talk about a couple other things first. I think the production values of this movie is actually really, really solid. I like the whole idea of this thing being taking place in one location. You create that very limited spacing, so to which where the group of characters we have, one of these guys can be the killer. So it's a good whodunit. And because there's a lot of characters on this train, the possibilities of who the killer is initially is actually is a lot of fun, and as an audience member you get to pick out you can get to pick out or pretty much assume which one's doing it all. You have red herrings like Doc, you have like Mo, who's Alana's boyfriend, this character called Jackson, the Prez, hell, you start to think maybe one of the train people, one of the workers on the train, like one of the porters or the conductors is doing the killings. Like the one thing Roger Potswaddle does by containing everything is that he limits he limits the amount of suspects, but it makes it more interesting that way. To me at least. Plus, I think it would have been better if Potswaddle would have actually created more of a claustrophobic atmosphere with this, since everything's on the train. So that way, when everything really does start to hit the fan, the whole claustrophobia being in one contained space could also start to play a factor in everything. I thought that could have been handled a little bit better. But for the most part, I thought Potswaddle did a really good job directing this movie. It got some tension, it's got suspense, it's got some pretty decent funny moments here and there. The practical effects, for the most part, look pretty good. This movie is not graphic by any stretch of the imagination, but when the killer does do some killing, he offs them. It's very simple, it's very basic, but it's intimidating. The killer in this movie is intimidating, and I like the whole idea of him changing costumes throughout the entire film, because you never know who it is. Like when we first see him, he's wearing a Groucho Marx costume because he steals it from this kid after he pushes him on the train tracks, and the kid gets chopped in half by the train. He dresses like Groucho Marx. Then he dresses in an alien lizard costume. Then he dresses as this creepy old woman. But there's actually this really cool shot as this is when Alana and the killer have this really cool scene where Alana is running away from him. They get locked inside the conductor's chambers, and Alana pretty much locks herself in a cage, preventing the killer from getting to her. And then the scene, he's like using like this I don't know what this, like this big metal fencing thing. And he's like popping out the lights, trying to stab through the grate. It's actually a really well done, really well directed scene. But towards the end of it, Alana pushes the killer off the train, and she thinks that the killer's dead. But as she's resting, we get this really cool moment where the killer is on the train and just peeping through a window. It's actually a really cool shot. I like it a lot. So yeah, like this movie has got some really cool visuals, and they did a really good job at making the killer very intimidating and just very unique. And like I said, I like a lot of the red herrings. I like how we think it's actually the magician doing all this, doing everything. And when you get to the end, the magician ends up being dead, and in a twist, it ends up being the magician's assistant. So basically, the character of Kenny, he's doing all the killings, but he actually disguised himself as the magician's assistant as a way to throw off everyone. Very, very clever on Kenny's part. I think his death is really rushed, and I think this movie just ends once he gets thrown off the train. I would have at least put an epilogue in there somewhere to like wrap up everything instead of just having an abrupt ending. I thought that was just it just felt really jarring. Like the conductor comes in, Ben Johnson saves Alana, he gets pushed off a train, and then the movie just stops. Like the movie literally just stops once he falls off the train and lands in like a little icy river and then floats away. Then parts stop. That was really, really jarring to me. In the beginning also, the beginning in the prologue, that was a little hokey as well. The actor who played the killer, his acting to me was very over the top. Then again, it's a Canadian horror movie. If you've seen Canadian horror movies, they're grossly over the top. Prom Night was over the top. My Bloody Valentine was over the top. This movie's no exception, but I think this movie does have more of a serious factor to it, and the over the top theatricality is toned down for the most part. So, yeah. With all that being said and done, I really liked Terror Train. I thought this was a damn good, fun slasher movie. It's got good performances in it. It's got a killer that's actually very, very intimidating, very, very creative in terms of how he hides amongst how he hides amongst his prey. How he offs everyone isn't really like mind shattering, but it's cool. I liked it. I enjoyed Terror Train a lot. That's why I'm gonna give it a solid 8 out of 10. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comment sections down below. Like the video and subscribe, and I'll check you back next time for more.